Dear students, let us begin with the third part of the lesson and continue our discussion on China as a factor in India's nuclear program. China views the US-India cooperation in nuclear research and development with concern. Although India's homegrown nuclear defense is not a cause of concern for China, it views with suspicion especially the US-India missile defense cooperation on the possibility that it could create a networked system. Recent US defense technology transfer pacts with India have also tousled China's peace. However, as of recent times, no threat of nuclear offensive exists, though the increasingly nationalist policies of Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi increases tensions in their relationship. The unfriendly relation has disrupted the economic interdependency between the two countries, with India blocking several Chinese apps on its soil, citing national security threats over cyberspace. However, the increasing tensions in the bilateral relations may lead to nuclear war. For instance, the recent border standoff at Ladakh alluded to the possibility of nuclear escalation because of the deployment of the nuclear powered INS Arihant, which was part of a larger defense deployment by India. However, it was rightly confirmed by India that it is normal to move navies out of their operational platforms during a crisis. The deployment was not meant as a nuclear signal, and India is unlikely to send out a nuclear signal in the future. The Chinese factor weighs greater than Pakistan in India's nuclear policy. The Sino-Indian War of 1962 made India and China adversaries. Later, a series of nuclear tests conducted by China since 1964 has made India uncomfortable. Its alleged transfer of nuclear weapons and designs to Pakistan has brought about a different dimension to the security of South Asia. The China-Pakistan nexus adds another layer of complexity to India's nuclear policy. Though not a part of South Asia, China is a force to be reckoned with. An arrangement of South Asia without this is unrealistic, more so as China has increased its nuclear weapon and missile capabilities over the years. Since India and China had battled in 1962, the nuclear threat from China looms large, with a possibility of India being blackmailed in future. This was further buttressed by the fact that China sent a ceasefire ultimatum to India during the Indo-Pakistan War of 1965. In 1971 as well, China declared that it would firmly support the Pakistani government to safeguard its sovereignty and national independence. China had advocated a nuclear weapon free zone proposal in South Asia because it could then enjoy military supremacy in the region. In 1960, China did not accept to the nuclear weapon free zone in its region. It wanted the nuclear weapon free zone to cover the territories of its principal adversaries. The relationship between China and Pakistan caused a sense of unease in India. In 1965, though China did not involve itself in the war between India and Pakistan, it supplied Pakistan arms. It should be noted that on 2nd March 1963, Pakistan and China entered into an agreement. The agreement covered the 300-mile frontier between China's Xinjiang province and the Pakistani controlled section of Kashmir claimed by India. India questioned the agreement on the grounds that China had no right to have a frontier treaty with a country with which it did not possess a common boundary. In July 1966, China and Pakistan further signed an agreement according to which China agreed to supply arms worth of 120 million US dollars. For Pakistan, China's involvement in South Asia is a long-term counterweight to India. It was not adverse to China expanding its influence in the region. Thus, Pakistan was instrumental in drawing China into the region in a big way with military linkages. In view of the various developments in the region, India felt that it needs to go for nuclear test, which would signal India's strength. India went for nuclear tests in 1974 and in 1988. India claimed a nuclear weapon state status. However, the major powers including the US did not recognize India initially as a nuclear power. Later, India was acknowledged by the rest of the world as a nuclear power. India felt that if it becomes a powerful nuclear weapon state, it could play a role in international affairs because no one listens to a weak state and one can influence only from a position of power. Both countries have expressed their desire to resolve their border conflicts through diplomatic channels. However, such mechanisms have not yielded much result and tensions continue to escalate at the border. Still, the levels have not reached the nuclear threshold, but both countries need to be cautious. Both need to resort to resolve the border issues, which otherwise remains as a bone of contention between them. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far in this lesson. Together, India and China occupy considerable portion of Asia's geographical area, house huge populations and are rising economic and military powers with significant nuclear capabilities. Their sheer size and influence make them pivotal players on the global stage. Both countries have important mutual stakes in maintaining a cordial relationship. Both nations are rapidly rising as economic and military powers. Their economic growth has significant implications for the global economy, while their military capabilities command attention in the realm of security. It rests upon them to rise peacefully and engage with each other cooperatively in a world which requires their joint efforts to address several issues. Most importantly, fears and speculations about resolving bilateral conflicts through nuclear weapons should be avoided by both countries, as nuclear weapons, being weapons of mass destruction, knows no boundaries to their damage, and irrespective of who wins such a war, everybody inevitably loses. Thus, India-China relations should remain rooted in diplomatic negotiations and confidence-building measures to keep an underlying optimism in the overall bilateral relationship. These measures can include transparency in military activities, crisis communication channels, and cooperative security initiatives. There should be mutual efforts to keep neighborhood and global peace and resolve all outstanding bilateral and other issues and tensions in keeping with the spirit of the Panchashil or peaceful coexistence. Implementing mechanisms for early conflict prevention and management can help avoid escalations and maintain stability along the border areas. Both countries should recognize the benefits of their economic interdependency. Strengthening economic ties through trade and investment can promote prosperity on both sides. I hope you understood about China as a factor in India's nuclear program. We have concluded our lesson. Thank you.